Hello, everyone. Can you hear me or hear me? Yeah, perfect. Hello, everyone. Okay, let's get this rolling. Is this working or not working? We'll see if it works. All right. So, welcome everybody to my talk. This is the first time I'm doing this talk at all, so bear with me. And so the talk is about leveraging standardized development environments for peak developer velocity. Before we get into it, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Burazin. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a new startup called Daytona. And we will not do a lot of plugs in this talk. We'll just talk about more about the product category in general and how it can be useful to people in general. Prior to this, I was the founder of this conference. And although I've stood on this stage many times in the last 12 years, I've never had the opportunity to speak, which is probably why I probably did something wrong while I was the founder here, because they gave me this shitty slot to talk after lunch when there's not a lot of people around. But before that, I co-founded a company called Code Anywhere, and Code Anywhere was one of the first cloud IDEs out there. We started it in like 2009, very, very long time ago, with somewhat success. But basically, we found that over time, and that's what drew us to create this new company, is that things have come into place that will enable technologies, or it's essentially the mission that we had way back then was utilizing the cloud to essentially speed up developer velocity. So what the hell are standardized development environments, and why should you care? And how is that linked to developer velocity in general? Well, first, when I started, I went to look out for a definition, if there is one. I did not find one. I asked ChatGPT to give one, and it distilled something that I didn't like. So I wrote something on my own, and hopefully we'll put this out into the internet and see if it sort of catches. So the definition, as we wrote it, is a standardized development environment provides a constant workspace, configuration of tools, build processes, and environment settings, which enables a uniform development setting, ensuring that every developer operates within the same parameters. And so this sort of defines the constraints. And I think I'm missing something with how those constraints help the speed, but we'll get there with the definition. And so how does this help you all? Basically, we have three pillars of standardized development environments and how they help them. So there's productivity, scalability, and security. Productivity, I'll jump right into it. So about the number figures out about 56, but we found that it's anywhere from 50 to 70% of a developer's productive time is actually lost doing a lot of bullshit. And so I'll show you the bullshit here, which is, if you look at this chart, we did our own analysis. We also have other sources that we pulled into. The average developer actually works 9.1 hours a day, which is more than some managers might think you all work. And so when you take away the non-working weeks, holidays, vacations, whatnot, then the overhead tasks, meetings, emails, administrative stuff, probably the papers you have to fill out because you've been traveling to this conference, that's more than half of your actual time. And then what you're left with, you spend about 2.7 hours a week on dev environments, 3.7 waiting for tests, and 3.5 waiting for builds. And so that is a lot of time that you're spending not actually doing the job that you want to do. And so for the managers out here, that actually, if you take the average American software developer's salary, I think we pulled it out from 2021, that actually turns out to about $80,000 a year. And so it might not be money out of your pockets, but so for the managers out there, definitely should think about this as well. But also it does solve something very important for the developers, and I'm sure you've all had this experience. I know we've had it, and it's basically the works on my machine problem. You work with a colleague, you try to set something up, it doesn't work. He says, well, works on mine, go figure it out, and hence waste your time. And so I'm fairly old. So when I was still actually writing code, it was 2002. So quite a long time ago. And then it was a lot easier, I have to tell you, to write code. Like spinning up, when you wanted to write, you spun up your editor, you wrote some code and you hit run, it actually worked. There was no issues at this scale of setting up the development environments. But now in like 2024, I feel it's gotten like so ridiculous. But there seems to be sort of a light in the tunnel where this can actually be solved. And so, welcome to the world of development environment as code. Um, this term, I think, was coined by Microsoft and they deleted it. Not sure why, but it's there. It's essentially everything that we know about infrastructure as code that's been now actively using in DevOps, now oriented towards the development environment itself. So there are a lot of standards out there in the world that you can use, but there's basically three that have been showing up lately as the leading sort of the standards. And the first one is Dev Container, which is made by Microsoft. It's open source, and it seems that that one is actually the most prominent, which makes sense because Microsoft is GitHub is owned by Microsoft, and a lot of open source projects are there. And if you want contributors to work with your open source project, then it helps if it's easier to set up the develop environment. On the other hand, you have DevFile, which is created by AWS, JetBrains, Red Hat, and I'm missing one company, but I'll remember it. So they have theirs spin, and there's also an old kid on the block. So Nix is about 15 years old, and the way that Nix operating system is built, it uses a configuration file to set up that operating system, and it's fairly been used actively lately in this world of development environments as well. I'm going to stop with that because right here, you can put up your hand here, Toma. He's right here. He's a colleague, software engineer at Daytona, and also our de facto DevRel person. He's on the stage at 5 o'clock. He's going to talk more about these configuration files and how they work and the differences between them. So I'll stop with that and sort of move on in actually how does this work. And so basically how it works is you have a file in your repository. So I'll give an example. The way you work right now, the way you work right now is like if I here and one of you out there or multiple of you are working on a project together, usually if I have to update or change a version of Node or add something else, I'll install it on my terminal. I will then commit the code and then you'll check it out and then it'll break because you didn't read my comments or you didn't care that I changed something that. But the future sort of, and the way companies are using it now is you basically just have one file inside, which is part of your source code repository. And instead of typing the command in the terminal, you'll just add it to the configuration file. Once you add the configuration file, every time you check out that code, you'll have a development environment that always works. And this is also sort of interesting when you look in historical branches, like any branch you check out will have that version of the development environment that will work. So you don't have these problems about setting up legacy development environments anymore. And what's most important, this works today, so you don't have to pay for anything, you don't have to buy anything. You can use dev container or dev file out of the box today. You start using it, it works with your VS Code locally, and just take the pain away from setting up these or trying to set up these development environments essentially every single time. So that's sort of the first thing that these sort of systems can do as productivity. The second is scalability. And so with scalability, the issue is that I check out a branch on my laptop, I try to spin it up, and I don't have enough. This is a shitty screenshot, I apologize, but I don't have enough resources and it breaks. Or more often than not, I do have enough resources, but just barely. I just barely have enough. It spins it up, and then it's either slow, I have to turn things off. For example, I had a call with someone last week, and we had a video call, and his development environment was running, and he had to turn off the video. I shit you not. He had to turn it off because he couldn't run it. Like the laptop did not have enough space on it. And so this is something that happens across companies, across industries. And the solution for now what we found is basically use an EC2 instance, spin up your development environment up there, and off you go, right? And so this works if you're one engineer. But imagine now you have like 100 engineers or 500 engineers or 1,000 engineers. You need now a team of DevOps people that are going to manage all these development environments, or production environments actually, but using development environments up and down. Palantir specifically I recall that they had 12 DevOps engineers running just managing the EC2 instances in their company for these remote development environments. And that is without even calculating the cost that it's going to cost you to have all these running up in the cloud. And so the way we sort of see the future with these types of products is that this is dead, but anyway, I can do this. is basically you'll have a web dashboard or a CLI, which will say SD name create dash cloud or something like this. I made this command up, but basically for just to show the simplicity versus having a team of DevOps people, you basically have one command. The develop environments will spin up and they will scale to whatever you need. So imagine your computer just expanding as much as you want. But it's not only one computer, it's essentially you can have multiple. So if you want to just check out a PR from someone, you don't have to spin up a new laptop. You can basically spin out laptops as much as you want. Um, and what we're trying to say with why we call these things standardized development environments versus cloud development environments, some people call them, is that we believe that the future is both local and remote. You should essentially be able to spin up with the same command, local development environment or a cloud development environment, using the one that fits you best. And I did not make this up. I actually copied it or stole it or whatever, inspired by Shopify. So Shopify 7 years ago for their entire company actually defined standardized development environments on their local machines for all their engineers. And then what happened is about 2-3 years ago, this is a quote, I'm not lying, I had a call with him. So Don Kelly, the person that actually runs this product internally, they have a SD internally in their company, said the products of Shopify are becoming so complex with all the moving parts, the laptops were melting. This is a quote. And so they had to solve it in the sense that when we have these big projects, how do we get our engineers to have these environments, but somewhere off their machine where they can use it properly? And so looking at what they've done at Shopify has been an inspiration, sort of how we think about standardized development environments, which is you have one standard, one command to spin up your development environment wherever it suits you best. Be it local, be in the cloud, be it multiple, whatever, it always works. So we've gone through productivity and security. I'm going to have a bit of water. Productivity and scalability. And the third one is security. And so security is more for the managers out here. Probably if you're an individual developer or a small startup, you probably won't care that much, but bear with me for a second. Like, security is no joke. And I think it's been one of the leading forces behind standardized development environments. And sort of one of the reasons for that is specifically Uber. Uber was fined by the FTC for source code leakage, or essentially, as it says here, the security of their non-production software environments, which essentially means their development environments were not secure. Someone's laptop was stolen. In that laptop was source code, which was in plain text. In that source code was credentials to a database, which was in plain text. And in that database was information of all of us that use Uber, drivers, and whatnot. And they didn't tell anyone. And so because of they didn't tell anyone, they were fined $142 million. And so when you're fined $142 million, what you basically do is you say, well, that's not going to happen again. And you go and build out your what we call standardized development environments. This is an actual screenshot of their web dashboard. They call it DevPod. And as you can see, it's basically you can start, stop, delete it. They have default templates. So this one here is Go. You can pick the region. You pick the region that's closest to you, so it's the fastest it can be. And you can launch a development environment in a web browser. You can use your local JetBrains, your local VS Code, or you can copy the SSH token and just work inside your own terminal. And so that is great, but there's also like, what's the alternative and what are people doing now that have not been fined by the FTC? Well, I don't know who's old enough to remember this, but remote desktop connection. If you don't know what what remote is or Citrix, it's essentially like screen sharing. So imagine logging into a server and everything's sort of laggy and delayed. And so the way that companies do this today, this is done today, is that they have to have secure development environments. They give them a VM on a server, and they log in via remote desktop connection, and the ID is installed over there. And so you essentially have to stream it, and you have engineers working 8 hours a day, or 9.1, as we said before, through this. I would literally shoot myself if I had to do that, literally. And the worst thing is, on Microsoft's website for remote desktop, they say 150 milliseconds of lag is okay. That is an okay user or developer experience. And so I can actually show you what that looks like really fast. Wrong way. Where's my other screen? I have to find my other screen. Sorry, people. Uh, Here it is. So there's a little app someone made, and thank you whoever made this. It basically shows you lag at 10 seconds, 10 milliseconds, and that's fine. And they have these cute little buttons. It could be worse, 30 milliseconds. Is this worse? And you're seeing that I'm getting a little bit more delayed. And they're like, this is worse, which is 50 milliseconds. Still not bad. I'm not sure if I'm typing it correctly. Really bad. Let me just jump to 150, which Microsoft says is an okay experience. Is this okay? And so now you can see that this is fairly delayed. And now you can imagine using your VS Code or IntelliJ through something like this all day. Not, we're talking about developer experience lately. This is not a developer experience, right? And so you have engineers working, hundreds of thousands of engineers working like this even today. Because they need to be secured. And so our message here, or the theme about standardized developer environments, is stream essentially text, not images. So with a product like this, with a service like this, you can install it, your company can install it on their secure infrastructure. But as an engineer, you can use your local editor, and it will connect to that, and you have an experience as good as you're working almost locally. And so just to think about it once more, just to say source code and credentials are in plain text on developers' laptops. And the people that have not, so I've worked at companies before that take security seriously, and they have not taken care of development environments. So I just want to leave that there for a second to remind all that that is still fairly important. And sort of lastly, to sort of sum it up, how does all this increase developer velocity? All these things I said. Well, basically, right away you get instantly and always working development environments. It always works. You're not banging your head against the wall. You're not trying to figure it out. You're not calling a coworker why it doesn't work. You're never constrained by the hardware of your laptop. Scale as much as you want. And you can run it securely with absolutely no lag at all. And so that's why companies like Shopify, Uber, Palantir, but also Airbnb, Plaid, Stripe, Slack, LinkedIn, Tesla, Eventbrite, all these companies have built this internally or something like this internally. And there's even more. There's, Google has it, Facebook and whatnot. And so the reason why they've done that is because you have essentially zero learning curve as a developer, but you get all these benefits. And just sort of a last plug into Daytona, that's why we made this company. We want to give this to everyone else. And basically, the vision for us, the future, is you have just one command, which is Daytona/hash, or a URL, which is Daytona.io/hash, and you hit enter and you start coding. And so, thank you. That was my talk on SDEs. You can hit me up on Twitter or X or LinkedIn, and thank you very much.